following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the T. Martek Hour, Joe Martek.
Interest is 6%. Isn't that exciting? And that's it. And
I don't get 6%.
That's at a low interest rate.
I get 1/2, 1/10, 1/4, 1/3.
No, we're talking.
And a thank you for your money.
I don't even get a toaster.
We're talking about the debt in the United States, our national debt. The
who
interest.
do we owe this money to, Joe?
We owe it to ourselves.
This
is the goofiest thing in the world. You know, it's printed money with nothing to back it up.
I thought it was borrowed money because we're $20 trillion in debt that we borrowed.
Well, where do we borrow it?
Why didn't we just print it instead of borrowing?
I think we did that too.
Is there a big difference between borrowing it and printing it?
All it does is devalue the money when you print more.
You know, and people say, well, what if China called all the debt?
I
You
wish
say,
I
well,
had that
good.
song.
You think we're going to pay?
You think the Don would say, come get it?
They're not. How are they going to get it? Anyway, 6% of our annual budget is interest on the debt.
And the interest rate's very low.
And the interest rate is next to nothing. So if
But that's why the interest rate is so low.
So what if interest rates go up to 6 or 7%?
It won't, because we owe too much money as a country.
Well, yes, see that now there's a positive to keep the interest rates low.
So are you telling me that we borrowed this money on a variable note, not a fixed note? Don't they know?
But
I want it on a 15-year fixed note.
But isn't it an arm, an adjustable rate?
An arm. They twist your arm when they want the money. That's why they call it an arm.
340-1590, 340-1590. That's the phone number, by the way. You can call in. This is the Team Martek Hour. I am Joe Martek. Sitting with me is Dan the Man, independent insurance agent Dan Woron, 38 years.
Yeah.
You look really old today.
It's been a rough
Dan's
week.
saying, stop rubbing it in, Joe. Stop rubbing it
I've
in.
had the grandchildren down here, but I've recovered nicely, I think.
You know, what was it? I was talking to, one of my clients, and he's up in North Carolina, and he's got relatives visiting, and he's got an 18 and a 19-year-old that are not in school, not working,
Hopefully they're boys
living
and not
at
girls.
home.
Well, I could handle that. These were 2 6-year-olds and a 2.5-year-old.
Wait,
run
they're
your
still
ragged.
cute then, though. They're
Yeah,
still they're
but
not
I
cute
like 'em.
when they're
I
18
They
like
or
don't
'em.
19.
realize that they can get hurt running, and I mean, we were so grateful that they didn't get hurt badly.
Yeah,
They're
right.
running around the pool.
Well, when they're running, they're close to the ground,
That's
so when
true.
they fall,
It's not
true.
as bad.
I remember years and years and years ago, we didn't have much money, and I had to take the kids and we'd go camping all over the country. And my grandparents lived in California, and they're in a typical retirement, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, little house. So we stopped there, and we got 4 kids, and my grandmother, oh, Joe, you got to stay. You got to do this. I'm going to cook. I'm going to do everything. I said, now, Graham, we're going to leave. No, you can't just go in one day. You got to stay at least 3 days. Please, please, please. I said, okay, Graham, we'll stay. Next I hear, Joe, damn, get away from that TV. Then I hear, Joe, Michael's in the tree in the backyard. I said, well, Graham, he won't hurt the tree. Don't worry.
Well, their house isn't childproof. Just like my house, any longer, it's not childproof. So I'm concerned about them you know what? I can fix stuff in my house.
We play the don't leave the carpet game. I have tile floors, but we have this big carpet in the middle. Let's play the don't leave the carpet game.
Next day,
they don't get hurt that way.
My grandmother got up in the morning and said, oh, Joe, my back is killing me. Maybe you guys better leave. But you know what happened? When you're young and you have little kids and they run and you don't pay any attention. It's like the mother walking down the street with one in her arms and one hanging on to each part of her body, and she says, don't let go.
Well, I mean, Nancy does such a great job with the kids, but I'm going to tell you, the day after they leave, all those muscles that she had forgotten about from picking them up
all showed up.
Yeah, she wears around.
Well, I hate to tell you, none of us get younger. It's just one of the perks of life, The only way to stop that is to die, which can work.
We can avoid that.
We can avoid that
Let's
for a while.
avoid that.
Yeah, kids come to the house. I have French doors. It's like, don't touch the windows. Don't touch the windows.
Oh, we don't even say that anymore. We just wait till they go home.
then clean.
And then we know they're like 3.5 feet from the ground, all the little handprints. We just wait until
I have a glass table in my dining room, and they're up underneath. I'm like, not the underside. I got to clean the top. That's one thing, but now I got to get under it.
That's you're just fighting a losing battle.
There's no way to win. The only way to win is to get rid of them.
When the kids were younger, I had a rule: don't feed the dog at the table. But just like you, we had a glass table. But you didn't realize that I could see her hand underneath that glass. Are you feeding the dog? No, I'm not feeding the dog.
Dog's stealing it right out of my hand, right? My youngest one grew up on Purina dog chow. I'm not
kidding. Sharing is caring.
She would sit on the dog bowl, and she was probably 1.5 years, 2 years old, and we had 2 dogs. And the 2 dogs would sit there perfectly still because she would take 1 nugget for this dog, 1 nugget for that dog, 1 nugget for her. My
Like the government.
That was the healthiest kid on the block, I'm telling you.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And
Little kibble.
My father-in-law came in, he goes, Joe, you know what that kid's doing? I said, what? She's eating dog food. And I said, yeah, cheapest kid I've ever had. It was healthy. Then he really got upset because she'd have a hot dog in her hand, and then she'd take a bite and then give a dog a bite, and give another bite, and then she'd take a bite.
Sharing is caring.
Look, it just became, okay, that's the healthiest kid in the whole block,
Dog's happy.
Anyway, the Team Martek group, as we call it, we don't even call it a group. We just call it Team Martek. Whatever shows. It's basically the Dan and Joe show, and we also have a special guest star here today, a retired prosecuting attorney from Wisconsin. Is this a pretty good build-up, Alan?
Yes, keep going.
It's better than my normal, right?
Make it better.
Sounding good so far.
And he has really nothing to do but harass me, so he's invited to be a permanent harasser, and he's pretty good at it.
Well, he balances out the show.
He balances out.
Is that the yin and the yang of the show?
There you go. But we need another attorney here that we can really pick on, named Greg Fasula.
Well, when he's here, he's always good to have.
He poor Greg. Now, he says he's a moderate, but we all know he's a liberal.
Yeah, exactly what does that mean?
What's that mean?
Yeah.
You're in a Republican county and you don't want to admit you're a liberal.
People say they're a libertarian, and I go, well, you're a Republican. You just don't want to admit it.
Yeah, that's just about it. Anyway, so we started off doing these shows, give or take, around 2004, and the concept was Joe Martek, financial advisor, lots of clients here and in 13 states, and I cannot answer everybody's questions. So if, in my not too humble opinion, if you are a credible professional, you align yourself with other credible professionals for the benefit of your clients. So through a common friend, I met Dan Woron, independent insurance agent. Big word, independent, because those of you that have lived in Florida since 1992, when Hurricane Andrew hit and put 10 to 13 insurance companies out of business, and I never have known the real number of you.
It fluctuates depending on who you talk
to. But it was at least 10 and maybe as many as 15, somewhere between that.
It was a difficult time, Joe.
And the state, by the way, every admitted carrier,
but not every company that goes broke is an admitted carrier, Joe.
No, that's it. But if they were an admitted carrier, the state took care of the claims. It took a long time to take care of everything.
Don't hold your breath.
But it does happen. The other side of the concept was some of the captive companies then went to their book of business and said, hey, we're going to lop off half of that business we've got in this area because we've got too much exposure.
Well, to come to their defense, Joe, it was primarily because the rating companies like AM Best, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, they said, listen, we think you're overexposed in the great state of Florida. We want you to remove some of your exposure or we're going to downgrade your rating. And the company said, oh, don't do that. We'll figure out a way to make it right. And as a result, they purged hundreds of thousands of policies in the state of Florida.
And speaking of which, and we talk about this loosely, but do you remember when, and you were probably licensed, when the state of Florida said we're going to be a standalone state?
I remember that, but,
How long ago? 30 years?
Yeah, at least.
At least 30 years? Do you know that, Alan?
No, I don't.
Well, here's what happens. Insurance, the concept is we've got a company based in Indiana, and they've got policyholders in 50 states. So we are spreading our risk out all over 50 states. So if something happens in a disaster in one, we've got 49 states to pick up the slack, so we can keep our rates uniform and priced fairly. Somehow we had who is now a senator, approved Florida being a standalone state, so that State Farm, Allstate, all these companies no longer are now exposed onto 50 states. Florida stands on its own.
It could be XYZ company, name brand,
right,
of Florida.
Right.
Okay, so that's what happens. And now listen, I know what they were trying to do, but I'm going to tell you, if a major carrier, a household name carrier, has an of Florida company, in my not too humble opinion, they're never going to let that company fold.
No.
Because it would look so bad on the rest of the states. But I understand why they did it. It was because they could say to the rating companies, if we wanted to, and this company folded because it's a Florida-only company, it won't affect the rest of our portfolio.
Exactly.
But I don't believe they will ever allow that to happen.
Isn't it, though, more costly than for the customers of Florida?
But there is where I was going.
Yeah.
Very often.
That's not fair.
Well, but that's the system. And once, when we were talking before the show started about our government and the mistakes that they make and the things that they do.
With our money.
And with our money.
They don't have any of their own money.
That's true.
It's our money. But the key is this. There have been abuses and will be abuses forever and ever. We constantly try to expose some of them, maybe to the benefit of our clients, we hope, the benefit of our listeners. But understand the system.
Well, I've always felt that in most cases, people that have an agenda, it's because they want to do good with that agenda. I don't think they go in with an evil purpose, but I think over the length of time that many of our elected officials are in office, their view becomes, how can I get reelected, not what can I do for my constituency? And that's where the evil part of, the swamp, as they call it, shines. I mean, you can't have professional, forever politicians. That was never the framers' intent. It should not be allowed.
Are you saying that you and I, when we start this new nonprofit railroad, are going to pay us a couple $1 million a year salary that we could let Allen Love in on it too?
And then we can let it go broke.
And
start a solar company to make panels.
Very good. And that way we can make another couple $1 million before that one goes broke.
We tried.
Let's slap them solar panels on everything in a state that has hurricanes.
Here's something that I saw. Maybe one of our listeners has heard.
We should do windmills wherever we don't have the
Here's what I heard.
solar
They've
panels.
got a new system where they can make your roof tiles where they can collect
I saw
energy.
that.
Not little solar things.
Okay.
But that sounds
The
pretty
whole roof.
interesting.
When they come with something that's going to stay on the house.
Right. It's your roof. It stays on the house. That seems pretty
But it
interesting.
stays on the house unless there's a storm, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, some roofs stay on the house.
One of the problems they haven't been able to figure out yet is how to make this cost efficient.
That's
so
the
let's say a
problem.
roof costs $10,000. Well, this is going to cost $50,000. In order to make it pay, you've got to live 150 years.
But
and how much energy is it going to make?
Just to come to their defense, I can remember when a nice big gigantic 40-inch TV was $10,000.
Right.
Today it's $500, $400 because people bought that $10,000 TV. And so I'm saying
maybe it will work.
If wealthy people step up to the plate and say, hey, I'm going to invest in this technology.
What's amazing is we have these huge TVs now, but nothing to watch.
Well, you got so much to watch; it's scary.
Yeah,
but is it?
But you know what? I have the cable where you can hit the button and it tells you what year the episode is from.
Really?
I'm watching stuff that's like 6, 7, 8, 9 years old.
Oh, that's new. I watched the Andy Griffith
ridiculous.
show.
Yeah.
But that's deliberate reruns.
That's deliberate.
Yeah, Opie looks older than Dan now.
But there it is. Where's the new programming? You're watching MeTV probably.
Yeah. You got to watch the news.
Hey, I was talking to the station owner's husband earlier, and the state of California, they kind of have danced to their own drummer. Now they've got a new problem.
What?
They have too many electric cars.
Not enough electricity to power them?
No, that's not the problem.
Oh, what's the problem?
No more gas tax.
Well, that's like the city of Port St. Lucie. Do you remember when the city of Port St. Lucie said, hey, we're in a drought, and you shouldn't use any more water than you absolutely have to? A couple weeks later or 2 months later, there's no money. We have to raise the price of water.
Because people aren't using enough water.
Using the water.
Yeah.
Remember that?
And that's what they're saying, is that they're going to put a annual tax on electric cars $1,500, $2,000 because they need to offset the lack of the gas tax.
You know what? Everyone should start walking and just you can't tax that.
Well, what they should do.
Hey, let me tell you, if there's they would
They'd
now
figure out a way.
They would now flip-flops would cost $100 a pair.
They should sell it to you with a tax when you buy it. I remember looking at a Jaguar once. I looked at the price tag, and then toward the bottom it said gas guzzler tax.
Yeah, remember that? They still have that, don't they?
Gas guzzler tax. So electric cars should have.
Did it also have a luxury tax because it was a luxury car? Because they do that too.
Gas guzzler tax.
So you should have an electric car, no using gas tax. Boom.
Oh, I love our country. I really do.
Too energy efficient tax.
It's too energy efficient. You got to pay more.
You got to pay more. So hey, look, you want to be energy efficient. It costs a lot of money to be energy efficient.
Well, it costs a lot of money to be healthy.
Yeah,
if you would eat all the stuff and all the organic stuff, that's twice as much.
Then you'd be shopping constantly and cooking constantly.
So the farmer says, hey, I'm not going to put this spray on your vegetables. It's going to cost you more.
That's true. That's true. Organic. Hey, let's face it.
Yes. So he saved money by not using pesticides. Yes.
It doesn't look as good.
Wait a minute. We have another problem. Now you're living too long.
That's
right. Now you even cost more. You're supposed to die a long time ago.
They're going to get to that eventually, Joe.
There's going to be an old person. If you live past 80, they're going to have to tax you more.
Absolutely.
340-1590, 340-1590. So we started doing these radio shows back in 2004, give or take, and the concept, again, was to put together local professionals with integrity, with credibility, and with experience to help our local marketplace. So it was Dan Woron, independent insurance agent, Greg Fasula, attorney, Joe Martek, financial advisor. Then over the years, we have added Ms. Victoria Lloyd Remax of Stewart, who's been in real estate since 1978, who knows every block in these two counties, who's the hardest working person alive, heavy-duty integrity. Mike Paulus, mortgage broker. What we've learned about the mortgage business since Mike has been a part of the group is scary, and what can happen in the mortgages, which, by the way, they're loosening the underwriting. I don't know if you've heard about this, which is
great.
Making it easy.
But I still feel that you should at least pretend to be able to show you could pay the loan back.
No, they're not doing that. You still have to prove you can afford to pay. But back when I owned a mortgage company back in the early 80s...
It should just require a big down payment because then you would feel committed.
Well, then what you do is you eliminate every young person from buying a house, which is first-time buyers.
Which would be the people who don't feel committed.
Well, then again, guess what happens? Then all the rich guys build more apartment houses and make more money. So there's always a catch-22.
I just want you to be able to prove that you can afford to pay it up the road each month.
Well, they're not changing that, but what they're doing, they're allowing the ratio of income to debt to get larger. Back when
that's only because houses have become more expensive.
And nobody's making any money.
It's like cars. When I was first to the age of buying a car, you would be hard-pressed to find a car loan over 3 years.
Yeah, very hard time.
Today, when cars are, $60,000, $70,000, I see some of them for 7 and 8 years.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Because you can't afford to make the payments otherwise.
There you go. So
but look at the prices, too. I mean, what's going on with the price of vehicles? Just a luxury car, just looking back to 1996 and the Chevy Impala. I think it had like a sticker of 25. That was Chevy's hot sports car.
Yeah.
And it was pricey. It was much more than the other cars.
But you got to place in inflation too.
But paychecks though, Joe. Paychecks
have not kept up. But still, guess what? The car business, 18 million units this year.
Well, that's because they're giving you the ability to get in at a reasonable down payment,
right, or none,
and extend the payments for a long period of time.
Yeah.
What's so important, and I didn't mean to bring this up, but it's part of the insurance side of me has to discuss this. If you do that, if you put very little down and you're going to make these payments for a long period of time, it's really important to look at gap coverage because when you drive off that lot, you've lost money.
Yeah.
And if you owe a lot of money on this car and now you have an accident, and they could end up saying, hey, here's your check, and you still could owe thousands of dollars on the car.
Yeah.
So if you don't come in with a nice downstroke, gap insurance to me is a very important thing to discuss and to get.
So what you do, you add that to your regular
Add it to
automobile
your auto
policy?
policy. I
Yeah,
mean,
because you could be years into that loan,
and still be upside down.
but have an accident, and your insurance company's going to go, "I'm sorry,
Here's
it's an
the
old
value.
This is all
car,"
it's worth.
Well,
but
here's
you
the
still
value.
owe the bank.
Yeah.
Well, there are insurance companies, and Dan knows this, that they have, quote, a rider. You hear it on TV all the time. They don't necessarily use the word rider real strong, that you can purchase what Dan is saying.
Yeah.
You can purchase extra insurance for replacement. Or if you're upside down, here's what's called gap.
Yeah. And what happens a lot of times when you go and you're talking to the finance guy at the dealership, a lot of times they'll have the gap built in.
Yeah.
I would advise you to look at what that costs versus calling your agent and saying, hey, if I buy this car, what would it cost me to put gap on it? Sometimes it's much more reasonable.
Well, see, automobile dealerships, they make profit when they sell a car, but they make profit when they finance the car.
Sure they
They
do.
make profit when they add other features like
Well, gap
extended
insurance,
warranties,
extended
gap
warranties.
insurance. Used to, I don't see it anymore, Dan, but used to have, that was a big business selling a decreasing term. What did they call that back then?
Well, like a mortgage, like a
On a car, you get a car loan for 20
Yeah.
grand, they sell you $20,000 worth of life insurance that would go down
Yeah.
every month as you made payments. But if you died, the car was paid for.
I don't ever do that.
Well, remember those days?
Yeah,
But,
but-
that cost was 2 to 3 times higher than if they went in and
I,
talked to an
I
agent.
would usually tell them, listen, get a 10-year level term policy.
Exactly.
As the price of your car goes down on what you owe, you still have that same death benefit, and
Yeah.
it's going to be a better value for you.
The reality was, and it actually cost less.
Yeah, it was
I
a
mean,
better value.
it
Cost
was-
less.
it
Yeah, and that was just really covering just the bank.
with the
If you
exception
have-
with the exception of one thing. If you were going to die any minute and you wouldn't
was a
qualify
good
for
deal.
insurance, then it became a
That was
good
a
deal
good deal then
because
to
there
die.
was no qualifying
I
for
can't wait.
it. Yeah. Remember, like I see these commercials and
I'm
Alan-
dying, but I need a loan.
I'm dying.
Well, you see these commercials all the time. We don't check anything. You're automatically approved. No problem. You're insured, and it costs this.
All that's built into the price.
But then there's usually a caveat says if you,
You have
die,
to live 2
if
years.
You got to live for 2 years. If you die in the first 2 years, we give you your money
You gotta
back,
live
but
2
you don't
years.
you don't collect the death benefit. So you can't just go kill yourself real quick.
Yeah, nobody sees that tiny microscopic
Little tiny
print on
things.
the screen. So, but yeah,
Back to the old thing. If it sounds too good to be true, it
It
normally
is.
is.
Probably is.
And but it's what I get is it's not called false advertising, but if you ever look at the disclaimer at the bottom of an ad that's got 40 lines, and you got 1
See,
second
now
to
though
read
you
the
can
40,
pause. You can pause your TV now though,
and you can
read
actually
it.
read
yeah.
it.
But if you're old enough where that's an interesting product,
But
where
only I
it's
would
like,
do something
I
like
don't even know how to do that.
Have you ever read the whole disclaimers?
Yes.
And you
well,
didn't buy that
it's
product.
just no, and it's all like mumbo jumbo. And I love it though with the car. Especially we're picking on car dealers. Sorry, but they have the big beautiful car in the ad.
Right.
And then if you read what it says underneath it,
not this one.
that price ain't that car.
Ain't that car, right? 340-1590, 340-1590. So the concept of the group, very simply, was either to make you money or to save you money. And we've been very blessed. We've been able to help a lot of people over the years. Dan, in my not too humble opinion, is the premier independent insurance agent on the Treasure Coast. What made him happen? 38 years in business in the same county. Number one. Number two, give or take under his umbrella, up to 100 companies now, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Joe, they don't all do cars and homes. Some do health insurance or life insurance or workers' comp. But, plus we have tremendous abilities to go through the brokerage market,
Right,
if we have
right.
a difficult place to go. So we're very fortunate and very blessed to have that large of a portfolio to offer the clientele. Doesn't mean we can do all things for all people, but there's a good chance we
Pretty
can
close.
do it for most people.
340-1590. Anybody want to jump into this fray, just jump in, give us a call. If you don't want to, you can always call the radio station at any time, and they'll give out our name and number, and you can contact
They
anyone.
can call for, they want to talk about politics or whatever's
Politics.
on
We
their mind.
we love talking politics.
Now you're getting into
Now
my
we're getting
bailiwick.
into-
Now we're
Yes.
getting into fun.
Alan set up to that.
Alan woke up. That was really impressive. So you have any political comments there?
Yes, I do. I just think it's a tragedy what's going on in this country at the moment because of the fact that the Democratic Party is intent on blocking the president's agenda. The president and his family keep sticking their foot in their mouth every day that it's something. But The media is totally out of whack, but the point is that the stock market is ignoring it, and that to me concerns me, because when the stock market ignores what's actually going on in the country, that's when bubbles or bad economic times can come in, because the party goes on and gets better and better. We haven't had a 5% correction in the market in well over a year. And if you look back historically, that has been a lead indicator to recessionary economies within 18 to 24 months.
Well, talk about this for just a minute. For the last 2 years on this show, we've been talking and saying the market is full. We use a price-to-earnings ratio, and the price-to-earnings ratio, if it's 10, is considered a very fair value. If it's 20, that's called it's full at the very least, and it's pushing right around 20. So by all estimations, that's what it is. However, what happens is businesses are still in a positive attitude, assuming that our current president is actually going to accomplish some of the stuff that he's trying to when it comes to tax reform and or repatriate money from outside of the country, which will then stimulate more of the economy. So in the meantime, is that going to happen? $64,000 question.
Well, we hope so, Joe.
We hope so.
And you have to remember that there are many, many business management styles, and our current president has a long track history of private business, not political.
Right.
Okay, so
right.
he moves in. I know many guys who manage from a position of chaos.
Yeah.
It's self-created. It's how they run their business. And I'm not saying that that's what our current president is doing, but I'm going to tell you he has accomplished a lot despite all the things he's thrown out for people to become chaotic about. He has still stayed to his agenda and internally has accomplished a lot despite all the squawking and screaming that's going around
And what's
him.
interesting is they're so interested in Russia that you're not seeing what's actually getting. They're not telling us, the people on the other end of the TV, what's really happening.
Well, you know, I this is a personal philosophy. This may not have any relevance whatsoever, but I kind of look at this as the rope-a-dope
Well, I look
system.
at it as a sleight of hand.
Yeah.
Look over
Look over
here,
here.
Look over here.
while I do this over here, and I'm
Yes.
getting it done. I mean, so my goal is as
But they're
a
distracting
supporter,
themselves.
I want him to get it accomplished. If
Yeah.
he
Yep.
get it accomplished, I can turn away from all the sideshows. It's like going to a carnival, and I have all the barkers. Hey,
Yep.
come over here, look at this. And if my mind and my eyes on a certain thing, and I stay to that, I'm going to get it done.
I think there's a good chance that his internal mechanism today is looking at midterm elections as could be a sweep in his favor, and if it's not, his 4-year system is a failure. But he may be able to pull a whole bunch more people on his side and even get rid of some of the people that are supposedly on his side.
They did say he had no path to 270. And then right after that, they said he's going to lose everything midterm.
Yep.
So as long as they keep saying that he's going to fail, I don't think he will.
Well, I like that when they say that, because I just think it's rope-a-dope.
But you don't want a self-fulfilling prophecy where people who support the agenda become disillusioned and say, it's going to happen, he's going to lose. Alan and I were talking earlier, it's like a restaurant.
But see, I think that happened with Romney.
Yeah. If you have a
I don't
restaurant
think that
goes
happened
broke,
with Trump.
okay, and it's gone broke 2 or 3 times, and now the next person goes in.
Yeah, but maybe you shouldn't be running a restaurant.
We all say, hey, I wonder when they're going to go broke.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
don't ever go
But
there.
that's because we live here in Florida, and every time we see a new restaurant, we cross our fingers and go, hope they can make it.
And then you say, oh, I told you to go broke, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
never went.
Yeah.
But you never
Yeah.
went.
Yeah, and listen, that location has never worked.
It's snake bit.
It's snake bit.
That's yes.
Would you agree that our real problem at the moment is government inaction as far as things getting done? Because one example I saw yesterday that George H.W. Bush, between when he got inaugurated and the end of June, had 130 of his nominees approved by the Senate. Barack Obama had 183 of his nominees approved by the Senate. Donald Trump has had 46 of his nominees approved by the Senate.
Well, that's the plan.
And it's government in action that is worrying me. And I think, Joe, you know I love history.
Yeah.
The last time there was government in action was in 1928 when President Coolidge and then his successor, President Hoover, said, we're not worried about the economy. The churches and the people will take care of it. So government stayed out of it, and what did it lead to? It led to the Great Depression. I'm not saying that we're headed for the Great Depression,
all you're saying
but
is,
I'm worried about government in action.
I thought we had that in 2028. I thought that was the Great Depression.
Yeah,
We had the Great
but we
Recession.
did. We just weren't calling it that.
Oh.
Well, but I still look at unemployment now is at a very, very good rate. Some things are taking care of themselves. I still think the rope-a-dope philosophy, because all of a sudden midterms are going to be here. And, you know, I hate to say this, but years and years ago, I was listening to Bill Clinton on the tube, and he was talking about his foundation, but somebody brought up a question to him and said, what about this inequality in wages, where the guys at the top are making all the money and the people at the bottom are not? They're not getting paid. And he said, this will take care of itself. And they said, well, how is that possible? He said, well, when unemployment gets very high, 10%, 12%, a lot of good people are out of work, and they're willing to go to work for half the money that they used to get paid. But when unemployment gets around 4 or 5% or less, all of a sudden, companies are searching for people, and they're willing to pay a lot more money to get good people because they can't get them any other way.
But if you're allowing hordes of people to come in who are willing to take jobs at a reduced rate, that's going to stop the increase of your pay if you're currently living here legally. So you got to have that also looked at, Joseph. I mean, I agree with what
I
you
understand
said.
what you're saying exactly. Our in-migration, well, here's our new president. In-migration is a big situation on his agenda, making sure we take care of America first. And that's been a major stumbling block between he and the Democrats. But I think he's got it pretty much pulled off.
Nasty nationalist.
Well, hey, let's take care of our people first is the name of the game. But there is also some reality. If we can't fill the job because we don't have the people that don't have the skills.
I don't drink that Kool-Aid.
Well, it's never been a risk because we found them. And we have found a way to do it. Being a free society, we can do it. So I don't see it as a risk either. But here comes some in-migration for engineers, doctors, physicists, et cetera, that may not have the credentials here, but they do outside, so they're recruited.
But we as a society, Joe, we desperately need craftsmen, tradesmen, people who can build and create things.
Well, that's one of the.
We need great apprenticeship programs. We have to do that.
That's
because
one of
I'm
Trump's
telling you,
major objective is starting an apprenticeship.
if you don't do that,
Yeah.
things won't get done, and then the project that you build will be poor. And once again, I got to jump into from my insurance side of
Yeah.
it. If you are a track builder and all you do is as fast as you can build them up and throw them up and slap them up, a lot of insurance companies say we don't want you because that history shows constant problems with those homes. And I can tell you that there are many communities, big communities out here that have leaky pipes in their slabs and all kinds of stuff that have popped up over time. And I personally attribute it to unskilled labor doing jobs that require skilled people. And what happens if I'm a skilled tradesman, I expect to make a certain wage to get out there in that Africa heat and fix your roof.
Yep.
But somebody else will look at it saying, well, I can get it done for half that price, but I'm bringing somebody in who knows nothing about it. He's going to slap it together and hope that it works.
340-1590, 340-1590.
And Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs, he's got a program, too, that he's putting together to get people skilled workers. You know,
Skilled
not
workers make good money.
not everybody can be an executive. Not
No,
everybody can,
no.
you know, the trades, people who do are slipping away.
Well, don't forget, if you're
These skills
if you're
aren't being
craftsman,
passed on
let's say
to other
you're
people.
an auto mechanic, You're not an auto mechanic. You're a technician. You got to be able to work with computers, with your hands. You got to diagnose stuff, and they're making $40 to $50 an hour all day long.
You mean the days of plugs and points are over?
The days of plugs and points where you can take some gasoline and clean the plugs off and put them back in or over.
You got an emery board on you?
I do.
I need to file my points down so I can get my car started.
Those days.
You just love to show our age, don't you?
Isn't that the truth? I'm telling you what we used to do to keep a car running.
Well, hey, listen.
And like you said, it's all technical today. You've got to have equipment, education, and these guys, like you said, they're making good bucks, but hey.
You've got companies that will train you to be a diesel mechanic or refrigeration for the reefer breakdown. The minute you walk out of there with your credentials, there are people lined up to hire you.
Yep.
You can't find them.
340-1590, 340-1590. So much for politics, huh?
Well, politics is what a lot of things revolve around, okay? But sometimes we don't realize that they are, in some cases, suppressing the American dream of success.
I still think the rope-a-dope philosophy is on big time.
Well, Joseph, let me tell you who was the king of rope-a-dope?
Yeah, some guy that was the greatest boxer of all time.
Now, what condition was he in before he passed?
Well, he wasn't in too good.
Do you think he used his head for that rope-a-dope one time too many?
One time too many, but not twice two times.
Not twice two times.
This one, Sonny Liston nailed him.
I'm telling you what, I'm not rope-a-doping anybody with my head.
No kidding. All I'm using it as an analogy.
I understand.
But the key thing is, I think the boy's going to pull it off, and I think underneath there's a strategy. Let the Dems self-destruct, and I think he'll pull it off.
Then he's the kind of guy who the more they say he's not gonna, we won't let him, he gets more determined.
Yep.
We have 2 calls, guys.
We got 2 calls. Let's take a caller. We have a caller named Pat. Pat, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Go ahead, Pat.
Okay. Do you have I've lost it now. Do you have a judge there?
A judge? We have an attorney sitting right here.
Okay, I don't know where I figured he was a judge.
Well, you know what?
He knows some judges.
He knows judges. He used to have to pay. No, excuse me. Forget that part. He was a prosecuting attorney up in Wisconsin. But
that's good enough.
That's good enough.
Go ahead. Ask your question.
Okay, I want to know what he thinks of the death penalty, and I want to know what he thinks of the revolving door. When you hear on the news that Jim Bob was arrested for the 36th time, he's only been a felon for 36 times, and he's still carrying an illegal weapon as a felon. What's his opinion?
What is my opinion?
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is that the system has a flaw in it, and it has to be corrected. There is absolutely no reason why people that commit felonies over and over and over again, and felonies are obviously very serious because they hurt people. That's why they're called felonies. They're the highest crimes that you can commit. And to allow these people to be out on the streets, it's a failure of a lot of systems, our political systems.
How do we cure this problem, though?
It's by electing people who understand the problems that we have and are going to do something about it.
How about this? Years ago, in California, when you committed a heinous crime of a certain level, everyone got the same sentence.
Right.
It was life. And the only way the parole board would let you out would be if you could show that you have acquired training while you were within the penal system, that you could support yourself without robbing and killing if they happen to let you go. Now, the state came back later on and said, well, that was cruel and unusual punishment, and they stopped that.
That's too bad.
But I'm a firm believer that if you're in prison and you've done something to a certain level, you stay there till you can show me that you can support yourself without robbing and killing if we let you out.
Yeah.
Pat, the key thing I think what we were leading to is that the 3 of us here and now the 4 of us, including you, have to pay attention to who we are electing and what their philosophies are. Because as you already know, it's gotten way, way, way out of sync. You know, back when you and I and all 3 of us, 4 of us were kids, we had fear.
Mm-hmm.
We had fear.
called respect.
Yeah, well, you know what? Fear turned into respect. But I got to tell you right now, when I'm a kid, 12, 14, 15 years old, I'm worried about what's going to happen to me if I do something wrong. Today, there's just no fear, no respect. So it's a very sad thing.
Did you hear about the gentleman that got robbed over here on the island?
Yes.
Okay, I know him personally. Okay, these kids, all four of them, were under the age of 16.
There you go. Yep.
All right,
Yep.
they go out and they take the stolen money and they buy their mother's new cars. First of all, what parent is going to allow that to happen? So chances are within their household, crime might be encouraged, or at least
Tolerated.
But that's how you
Tolerated.
get new things.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we're talking about $80,000 cars.
Yeah.
Okay?
Pat, and what
That's
what
crazy.
Dan
They're
is
not
saying
asking
and you're
questions.
saying, and that is, it's back again. The system is broken, and we need to. And I feel sorry as all get out for our police force.
But it's the house also, Joseph. If you
Well, no
if you
kidding.
are raised in a house where that's tolerated, you're going to be a criminal and a thug
Yep,
too.
yep,
Parents have to be responsible, because when I put that kid in jail, which is where they need to go, it costs society a lot of money.
But you know something, on the subject of what it costs to put people in jail, you got a guy that gets off a plane in Lauderdale and shoots and kills 6 people. It's on film. He did it. We all know he did it. And what's he going to get, life?
Well, bottom line is, here comes another problem. It costs more money to kill somebody in our system today.
20 years later.
20
But
years
that's
later.
why.
But
Not
it's a
6
sad.
months later.
If it was swift, it wouldn't
If it
cost
was
as
swift,
much.
it wouldn't cost as much. right?
Swifty justice.
Pat, listen, I've got another caller I need to take before the show
Call
is
back,
over.
Pat.
Okay.
Call us back next week. We love talking to you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, bye. And we have another caller here. Mike, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm calling to first thank you all for the great thing that you bring to our whole community. You've eliminated my need for television. You keep us informed, educated, up to date, and a main thing, entertained. And thank you so much for it. I always look forward to your show.
Mike, where do I have to send the check?
Oh, the egos are going to be unbelievable
Well, I'm telling
now.
Dan, I'm trying to pat myself on the back. Dan's got me in an armhole here.
Well, my quick point is I think that our great President Trump could do well to learn from the example of President Reagan, who quickly learned to make sure he didn't open himself up in any way to the scrutiny and the slashing knives of the media who are after him. Trump is a populist, and so the Republicans and Democrats aren't crazy about him. He's an outsider, so we knew this wasn't going to be easy for him. But that was a quick, early change that President Reagan made. I'm 65, and I saw it happen.
Yep. And we all saw it happen. And
Well, you
we
got to
agree.
remember that Reagan had a little bit more seniority, let's say, because he had been involved with politics before in California, whereas I think, President Trump's primarily, his involvement with politics was trying to get people to do things that he thought should be done. Okay, now it's just totally opposite. He's a fish out of water, but I certainly think that he has the gravitas and the ability to see his agenda through despite all the distractions.
I do too, and he is doing it. It's just being so clouded by all the other that it's hard to keep track of it and see it clearly. But he is certainly.
It's hard for us to
accomplished.
see, but I think he can see exactly what he wants to
See,
do.
back to my rope-a-dope philosophy, Mike, that I think that underneath all of this, behind the scenes, that's a very powerful man, and he's put together a very powerful group. And the agenda, I think, is moving right along, and understanding that in our political system, he knew he was going to have trouble. And maybe he's allowing this trouble to fester to his benefit. Now, I'm not a positive on this one, but I'm saying that midterm elections, to me, in my way of thinking, are going to make a monster difference on what this man's going to accomplish for us.
Agreed. And where I'm really proud of him is when he's abroad and how he represents America. That's why I voted for him, even
Absolutely.
though I'm a Democrat.
100%,
Absolutely.
my man. Mike, you're speaking to the choir, and we appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much again for all you do. It's amazing Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. 340-1590, 340-1590. What a nice, that was, it isn't often. I've had a couple people call up and say, Joe, you shouldn't be talking about that. You're not supposed to bash Democrats on the program. And I said, well, there's only 2 in the county, so why not? But that upset a couple of them. But Mike is a converted Democrat, so that's good.
Well, you know what?
Or a sensible man.
I
Or
would
a sensible
rephrase that. Not a Democrat or a Republican, but a patriot. And therein lies
Patriot's the
difference.
major word.
That's one of the problems I think we're having. We talk about bashing Republicans,
Oh, yeah.
bashing Democrats. I have a number of Democratic friends who are so Democratic that they even have a picture of themselves and Barack Obama in their bathroom at their home. But seriously, I'm serious.
I know.
But
I'd keep it in the bathroom too.
We're able to talk about issues and things without demeaning, without using.
I agree. Hey, look at 340-1590, and let's just take one more. Hey, we have a fellow that left us, but are we streaming live today?
We're on.
Extreming live.
We're extreme today.
We're
yes.
extreme.
We're on Ustream. Yes.
Ustream?
Yes.
Hey, Bulldog, Joe Martek, you're on the radio. Are you streaming us?
I certainly am. Thank you, sir.
Very good.
By the way, thank you for the call this morning at about 8:24 that said, get my lazy butt out of bed. My butt was in a motorcycle seat with her behind me looking at a sunrise over Flagler Beach.
Well,
so,
just in case.
There you go.
Next time,
Just saying,
next time, I'll call you at 6 a.m. I don't want you to take this for granted.
Don't miss the sunrise.
Don't
that way.
miss the
Yeah.
sunrise, right?
all is well, guys. Dan, I re-emailed Nancy back with my new email address. And
I knew you
everything.
would.
We'll
I
get
just
that.
told her to get a hold of you, so I knew,
Yeah,
I
got
knew
it.
it'd get done.
No problem there. Hey, Joe, left a message for the guy at Sprint. His day off, so
Isn't that funny?
I only want to
Yeah.
talk to him. I don't want to talk to anybody else.
Well, he said anybody could handle it, but you know how that works?
No.
Anybody's never there.
Yeah, anybody. So I agree with you.
Dan Woron handles it, Joe Martek handles it, and this guy handles it, and that's it.
This is
You
the
know,
guy, if I remember right, said you could do something, and then the new girl said you cannot. Now he's calling. Why is he calling? That's kind of a clue, right?
He's calling to handle it.
So
Well, good. I'll talk to him. No one else. Thank you. Otherwise, I'll get the can't handle it
yeah,
again,
right.
and then I'll call you back and be all pissed at you, and I don't want to do that.
Well, I'm used to that, though. It doesn't bother
Oh,
me. All right, Bulldog, tell Mary Beth I said hi and enjoy Flagler Beach.
It's
I have
beautiful.
to ask from one biker to another, what do you ride?
Oh,
I've got a Harley Davidson freewheeler,
Okay. Very
which
cool.
is a stripped-down trike.
Yes. Oh, I know. I know what
Right,
it. Yeah.
2015.
You-
Nice bike.
Very cool.
You've got the consummate biker broad here sitting, son, and she knows all her bikes big time.
We have a 2010 Police Road King.
Oh, Police Road King.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's a good one.
Yep.
Hey, like I said, you're talking to the choir here when it comes to the girl. Hey, Bulldog, good talking to you. Thanks for calling, my man.
Okay, later on, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
340-1590, 340-1590. I was going to talk a little bit about the difference between mutual funds and ETFs because I had a couple of people this last week that talked to me.
But
You've
don't-
got 4
don't
minutes to
say
talk money.
ETFs. Nobody knows what that is. You got to say, we're used to the jargon.
Thank
Somebody
you, Dan.
listening would
He's
not
look,
know.
see what I like about Dan?
ETF estimated time.
Yeah.
Exchange
forever.
traded funds.
You know.
Okay.
You know.
Because I've been teaching Alan as we're going along here. Exchange traded funds. Mutual fund, exchange traded fund look very similar on the surface. And they are very similar on the surface. Basically, a mutual fund or an ETF could be roughly 100 different companies. That one big company comes out and buys stock in all of these companies. And now they come to you or me and say, hey, look, you want to own all 100 of these companies? We'll slice you off a little tiny piece. And now you will own fractionally all of 100 companies. Now, why do you like that concept? Well, because if one gets in trouble, I got 99 that may not. So the concept of the mutual fund and the exchange-traded fund are there to offer protection for those people that want to be in the market. Is that a fair analogy?
Yes.
So now, what's the difference between quote, a mutual fund and an exchange-traded fund. Real quick. Now, this is not 100% definitive, but most of what I'm going to say applies to almost everything that I'm going to talk about, and that is this. A mutual fund company, if you call up at 10 in the morning to your broker and you say, hey, broker, sell my mutual fund, broker says, no problem, but it will not sell until 4 o'clock today at the close of business based on the value at the close of business today, not on the value at 10 o'clock in the morning when you called.
So if there was some bad news that caused me to call you and say, hey, get rid of that, if that bad news gets worse,
you're going to take
I'm
the
going
hit.
to take a hit.
Now, if the news gets better, you actually make a bit of a profit.
Can you
that.
stop it? Go, stop.
Once you put
If it gets
No.
better? No, okay.
well, people that are a little bit more sophisticated when it comes to trading and selling mutual funds, they wait till around 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, so don't look and don't even look
during the
until
day.
it's
Don't
that
look during the
time,
day
right?
and watch it what it's going to do.
Don't look.
Because the order is put in to do a sell, and very often to stop a sell or stop a buy is not the easiest thing to do, and sometimes it's too late.
And how about on the exchange traded fund? What do they do?
The exact opposite. I call at 10 in the morning. Every one of the stocks in that fund, all 100 companies, 50 companies, 500 companies, are instantly sold just like a share of stock. All when I say instantly, it could be within 5 minutes, but it's very, very, very fast. So is that important to the average person? No.
Could be.
But it could be. It could be.
Why would I not want that all the time? What is the benefit from waiting till 4?
To me, what's happened, the exchange-traded fund business is slowly taking over the mutual fund business. They're eroding it like crazy. And I can't see anything wrong with the exchange-traded fund.
Do you have exchange-traded funds that duplicate the exact stocks of mutual funds?
Yes.
The same?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And in fact, the two that I like maybe the most, one would be the S&P 500. We can either do that in a mutual fund or an exchange-traded fund. And the NASDAQ 100, which is heavily loaded with all of the hot tech stocks, which is Amazon and Netflix, et cetera. And I don't care what it is. If there's a mutual fund that has 50 companies in it, almost always there's an ETF that has the same 50 companies.
Now let me ask you, because I'm thinking as you're talking.
That's
would
impressive.
I know. Would they both cost about the same?
Well, and it's the weirdest thing, isn't it? Very often the ETF can be a little less expensive than
I
the
would have
mutual
thought
fund.
just the opposite.
No, and I would have thought so too, but somehow or other, the cost of this ETF is a little bit less. Now, here's what happens, folks. There's no free lunches in this world. People never see what it actually goes to the mutual fund company or the ETF company unless you ask or are told. But let's just take an index like the S&P 500. The average cost between an ETF and or a mutual fund is less than 1%. In fact, many are less than 0.5% per year. Now, some ETFs cost more, some mutual funds cost more, but we're not going to get into heavy duty today because we run out of time.
We did.
Too much politics.
340-1590, 340-1590. And until next week, thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Team Martek Hour. The Team Martek Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the Team Martek Hour here on WPSL 1590.